Hey, Juventini, welcome back to the all Juvecast, and this is episode 120, and we are coming off the draw against Lazio, 1-1 draw that is a kick in the junk, especially for a West Coaster who got up at 3:30 in the morning. It's early for my man Lewis, who's joining me today on the podcast, 6:30 a.m. his time. Lewis, well, it's always easy to talk about Juventus because there's so much to discuss. And even
Yeah.
in this match, where there wasn't a whole lot of action, to highlight each half, especially the second half, but we
Yeah.
still have so much to discuss. And man, it was a rough one. We get the double dose of Lewis today because he was joining us on the Panchina. But man, you ready to try and tackle this one or what?
Yeah, that's those classic 6:30, 3:30 for you games, those early morning games. I mean, Juventus at this point, they're like, your toxic ex. Like, you can't get enough of them, but like they just kill you deeply inside.
Oh man, yeah, it's this one was tough, man. It would have been so good, but we'll talk about this one. Let's start off with the lineups. We got Tech and goal, Demiral, Bonucci, Danilo at the back, Quadrado, Bentancur, Rabiot with Frabotta getting the rare start out on the left. I believe it was meant to be Chiesa, and then Chiesa ended up getting some type of knock, or he's got some type of injury they're trying to protect him from, probably from getting worse. I don't think it's anything. It's not a big deal at the moment, but just trying to keep him healthy. Kulishevsky ends up playing in the hole because Ramsey now out for a while. We'll discuss that later. And then Morata and Ronaldo up top. Thought it would be fine. My only thing was, would they put McKennie in, and would he be one of those guys just because of his work rate and his defensive abilities against a Lazio that floods the middle of the pitch?
Mhm.
That was my only kind of question that could be raised. But at the same time, Kulishevsky, I was very, very intrigued at seeing him actually play that role and see what he can do. So, what were your thoughts on the lineup there, Lewis?
Yeah, I mean, the early surprise was for Rota on the left, for Chiesa. But other than that, I really like the lineup. For what the team is health wise, it's probably the best 11 we could put out there. Was a little surprised by McKinney because he's just shown a lot of bright moments. But it's always a pleasure to see Kulizeski play, especially because he's looked so bright recently. So I was excited about that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Kulishevsky has been one that I've said on previous episodes and whatnot. He looks like he hasn't found his exact spot just
Mhm.
yet. But he's definitely had flashes where he's shown what he can do.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what's going to be the best for him moving forward. Um, and again, we talked about some injuries. We had Chiellini at the back, Ramsey. We are going to dive into that on the back end of the actual match recap. So, yeah, it kicks off. And I think we look really good early on. Like it
Yeah.
just looks like we're pressing Lazio pretty good. We're moving the ball quickly. We're getting up there. Seventh minute, we get a good opportunity, moving up the pitch very fast. Ronaldo cuts in, takes a shot. Just didn't work out. I think the defender may have got most of it, and it just a rather easy save for the keeper. 14th minute, 15th minute actually, would have counted on, but we get some nice build up from Quadrado out on the wing, and the ball finds Bentancur at the top of the area, and he does a great job to suck in his defenders with a fake shot, moves it to the side, slots it over to the wing as Quadrado continued his run, and Quadrado crosses the ball in, and Ronaldo's just got to put a leg on it, and it gets in. So that's a great start for Juve. Very, very positive start. And then a few minutes later, we just kind of dropped right off. It felt like yeah, it was just a significant difference in approach and attitude. At least I felt that way on La Panquina. Did you feel the same, Lewis?
Yeah, and it's been something that's been going on for a long time since even the Allegri days, where Juventus get a goal and they're content just with that 1-2-0, lead, where other big clubs just look to kill the game. But it was a little disappointing to see us get a goal like that, have all the possession, put a lot of pressure on Lazio, and then just sit back and defend and counter.
Yeah, and that's the thing is really the remainder of the half we just kind of turned into a counterattacking team, which is fine because the counters actually looked fairly dangerous.
Yeah,
Lazio, as far as they go in the 20th minute, they do get a decent effort. I believe it might have been Milinkovic-Savic heading the ball across back to the back post, and very, very fortunate that the Lazio player can latch onto it. In the 30th minute, Tech makes a very, very good save, just swallowing one up from a hard low shot from outside. And then the 36th minute, we get another good counter where Ronaldo ends up taking a couple steps and just hitting one, and he just goes wide. And then 6 minutes later, again, nice counter, finds Ronaldo, and Ronaldo does very, very well, but puts his shot off the post. Um, Incredibly unlucky. And then we finish off the half with actually a very, very nice run from Kulishevsky as well, but we just couldn't make anything count on it as he drew the free kick. And then CR steps up and forces a good save by Reina. So there was some promising things, even though we had noticeably let up in
yeah,
attitude. We looked, in my opinion, at the end of the first half, structurally better than we have been. There's still some awkward moments transitioning
yeah,
from phases, and it hasn't mattered who that third option is. When we've had McKennie up just recently, when we had Ramsey in there, when we have Kulishevsky there, just the way Pirlo is running that, there's naturally some awkwardness when he's switching to a 4-4-2 defensively. It keeps kind of rearing its head, but in this one, it wasn't so prominent, at least in my opinion. I thought our first half was good. I liked what I saw to Kulishevsky because I've been saying for a while on this podcast, he to me looks like that player that needs to be looking forward. When he has his back to goal and defenders are on him, you notice he struggles and he loses the ball a lot. I
mhm,
saw the opposite in the first half when he was getting the ball. He was making the right progressions and he was looking. He wasn't as involved as I would have liked him to be, but I don't knock him for that. I saw some people rating him pretty low after the first half, but I don't think that was an
yeah.
issue with him. I thought it was more our lack of desire to get that ball back immediately. And just, yeah, the play wasn't getting to him enough. But other than that, I actually thought we played a really sound first half, and Lazio didn't really get a sniff of anything. And even when we let up and went to the counterattack game, we looked dangerous. So I was okay with our first half. Lewis, your thoughts on the first half?
Same thing. I mean, the first half was really, really good. It was bright. We came out, we hit them early. Obviously, we took our foot off the pedal, which was disappointing. But there were a lot of chances, and we could have easily went up, another goal before the end of that first half, even if we were setting back, because Lazio couldn't handle the counter. Similar things. I was really impressed with Kulizeski in the first half. He got a lot of space. It seems to be that man in the hole is finding great space on the counter. The hold-up play and the runs from Morata and Ronaldo were very good. I thought Rabiot had a really strong first half. He created a couple of those chances. Bentancur with a great ball to set up Quadrado on the goal. And just the only disappointment, as we mentioned before, is taking your foot off the pedal. And it's really frustrating when you watch like a big club like a Bayern Munich or a Liverpool or Real Madrid in their heyday. When they smell blood, they kill the game. In Juventus, it's like they smell blood, but they're like, oh, we're worried about conceding on the counter. It's very frustrating to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, right? We know it can't be gung ho the whole way. And we saw early on in the season when Pirlo really had us pressing and really wanted, you could see every midfielder just flying in there trying to get the balls. We ran into some card troubles, and we ran into issues where positionally it broke down defensively. So it makes sense, but I think now we've become the opposite, and we've lost balance in the other on the other end of the spectrum now, right? Like now we're, in my opinion, too comfortable without the ball.
Yeah.
You know, so Pirlo's definitely got to work on that. He's got to level it out there. But I agree with you on the standouts. I think in the first half, for sure, I thought Rabiot sounded clean. I actually thought Bentancur was doing good. I noticed a lot of Juventini were really going at him after the match, but I thought his first half was good. I liked everything from the midfielders. I didn't actually have an issue with anybody in the first half. There was moments here and there where errors were being made, but I mean, ultimately, I was happy with the first half. We get to the second, and we were talking about on La Paquita. We were looking at, when are we going to make a sub? What's going to happen? Like, I'm anticipating maybe 60th minute, depending on what kind of happens there. But we start off, and there's not a real whole bunch that you notice immediately, other than Lazio has picked up the tempo. But they still kicked off with immediate possession, and we looked to sit back. 57th minute, we got a great step by Rabiot, cutting out a play, works it up, gets the ball to, I believe, Ronaldo, who then in turn finds him again, and Rabiot forces a really nice save. We get a bit of pressure sustained from it, but it doesn't last very long, and we don't really get another opportunity to score. Sustained pressure is really something I've talked about. We need to get at that. We're just not getting enough quality possession. We're just not sustaining pressure and keeping opponents on their toes and really causing issues. It seems to be these one-off opportunities.
Yeah.
And this particular match really, really looked like we were just the counterattack game. That was going to be our thing, right? Especially after the early goal.
But in the second half, it got kind of lazy too. Like it just looked lackadaisical,
Yeah, we just really got to work on the balance of the game. That's all. That's all it really comes down to. This one, it sticks out like a sore thumb too, and it ends up hurting. And we're gonna get there. But some of the things I noticed, 60th minute, is we talked about it, and that felt like we were in full lockdown mode. We were just gonna manage and control, try to see what we can muster up on the counter, but we were going to hang back. Did you feel that way? Because I know that I've got some fans disagreeing on Twitter, but for me, 60 to 62nd minute, you could feel like it was like, okay, we are just going to hang back, drop deep, and see what we can muster up on a counter.
I felt that way because, when in the last 2-3 years have you ever watched Juventus where they don't do that? That's kind of been their MO of late. So naturally, I felt in the 60th minute, they're playing Lazio, they're up 1-0, they're going to drop off and try and catch them for that second goal and put it away. But they never really did anything else.
Yeah. And then we got, we continue on with the highlights. There's not a whole bunch in the second half, unfortunately. You got 64th minute, Ronaldo not able to get an opportunity after Kulusevski making a really, really great run, again, winning the ball deep in our end and carrying it up the entire way, and then finding Ronaldo, but unfortunately had a bit of a misplay on the ball there in the end, ends up losing it. And then again, just a lot of Lazio possession, but they're not really getting anything out of it. So I was still comfortable, I'd rather we don't sit back, but I wasn't worried at that point. Would you agree, Lewis?
Yeah, Lazio for the most part in general in this game did not get a ton. Szczesny had to had to smother a couple shots, but he didn't really have to make any saves until we'll get to it. But Juventus defensively were very solid. I mean, they had men behind the ball. They looked organized. Um, yeah, and it just we did a good job of taking them out of the game. I think also not having Immobile helped us out a lot. Creates a lot off the ball. But in general, I have to give us credit. We were solid defensively for most of that match.
Yeah, and I agree. And then we get 64th minute. We talked about this opportunity. Ronaldo couldn't quite get an opportunity. Right around that time, we're still looking for subs. I mean, I was. You can notice a couple guys that were really, really sucking wind. Bentancur was one for me. He was on a yellow as well. He got a yellow, I believe, in the 51st minute. Um,
Yeah,
and he looked gassed. Morata was waving to the sides quite a bit. He was pretty gassed. Ronaldo started taking some knocks. He had a moment in the first half too where he landed funny on his shoulder. So you're just like, you'd think you'd get some changes. We didn't get one till the 76th minute. CR7 again takes another knock. Hopefully, I don't anticipate it's going to be anything too serious, hopefully. But Dybala comes on for Ronaldo. 77th minute, and McKennie comes in for Kulishevsky. This one was the one I probably questioned the most. And
yeah,
um, when we were in full lockdown like that, Kulishevsky was the only bright spot as far as getting that play out of our end and moving it forward and progression the ball properly, right? I don't
yeah,
know about that one. I feel like I would have went with Bentancur on that particular sub.
yeah.
What do you think, Lewis?
I would have done the same. I think the McKinney for Bentancur was the more natural kind of switch. Uh, but when I look at that sub, it reminds me a lot of last season with Sarri, where he makes the same literal moves, and it was like like Weston McKinney is kind of a utility player. You can put him in different positions. It's like, well, maybe you don't need to put him in the hole. Like we could have did that the holding midfield position.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a tough one. Everybody says, your hindsight's 2020 whatnot, but I think like sometimes, yeah, you might be right where it's just set changes and just making them rather than I don't know if that one actually fit this particular match. Just because of that. Again, we still go through. This was in the 77th minute. We don't get another change until the 89th, which is Morata coming out for Bernardeschi. And Morata was completely gassed, completely. And again, it feels fine. We get 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes of extra time. And, again, it feels fine. I'm not terribly concerned. And then, a little something happened on La Panquina, who the viewers will have to see. But yeah, something happens on La Panquina. We watch, and here we go. The tying goal for Lazio, 90 in stoppage time, 94th minute, last play, and it's really just a horror show of a goal to concede. And you have us winning the ball back. McKennie doing very, very well. Pops the ball across on the sideline there. Dybala has an absolute nightmare of a touch. An absolute nightmare. It goes out of bounds. And then I watch, and our guys were pushing. And this is another thing, too. I couldn't quite understand why like Quadrado was pushing, McKennie was pushing, whatnot. Like it's literally like the end, but they pushed up. They got caught going up a bit, took them a bit more to get back. And then at this point, Lazio plays the ball immediately down the sideline into play. And then you have Bentancur, who's now in the spot Quadrado should be occupying.
Yeah.
So you have Correa there. And Bentancur squaring up this guy, which is completely like he should not be out on the byline defending. Then you have Quadrado coming into the play. Correa absolutely slices both of those guys up. I think he ends up megging Bentancur. But Quadrado goes in, and I don't even know what the attempt of defending is because he leaves a huge gap between himself and Bentancur,
Mhm.
and he gets by. Correa gets by, but Quadrado, like, this is a play, not to just pick him out because even Bentancur, when he gets by, between those two guys, you just can't let Correa go through.
Yeah,
It,
somebody needs to pick that up.
yeah, at the if it comes down to Bentancur taking his second yellow, like getting sent off at that point of the match, you do it. We cannot let him go from the byline to run straight into directly into our area.
Mhm.
But between the two of them, it fails. And this is one of my things when I talk about Quadrado and I criticize because everybody says he did so great on our goal. Yeah, he did. And offensively, as of late, I have had no issues with Quadrado. Whereas usually he holds a ball up and kills a lot of our plays, but
Yeah.
he hasn't been doing that lately. His tempo to his game offensively has been good. But again, for me, it's just the balance of that position, and I rate him at that position. In my opinion, a proper right wing back doesn't make that error. Do you
Mhm.
agree, Lewis?
No, I agree. A proper right back has more the mental capacity to come in, make a foul, or even just go in for a challenge. But because he's a right winger, he's looking at this, from a winger's perspective. I can't foul. Where it's okay to give away that foul there.
Yeah.
And I think also, I mean, Bentancur had a good game, but it is poor to get nutmegged in the 94th minute.
Yeah.
And there's a whole else bunch wrong with that play. I mean,
Yeah.
Correa then skips past, I think, Demiral, and then Bellucci's wrong side of.
Well, and that's just it. We continue on to the goal. I mean, Correa goes in. He's running at these guys. He makes just a. He didn't really have to beat Demerol. He just made a slight move. But this is the part where Bonucci gets caught.
Yeah.
He gets caught in because you can see him. Correa does have daylight. So if Correa wants to press that run in, Bonucci's got to cut in. So he takes a couple extra steps to go in there. When Correa slips the ball to Caicedo, because Bonucci has anticipated Correa, if he comes in, he needs to be in position. It ended up moving Leo out of position to be completely behind Caicedo and opened up that shot for him. But again, so much before it gets there that just can't happen.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly frustrating. And going back to the proper right wing back, there was opportunities throughout this match where Quadrado's defensive abilities showed up, especially on some back post coverage. Szczesny had to. Luckily, the header was right at him, but yeah, Quadrado was easily handled on this to the point where the player didn't even actually jump in the air to head this thing. Like he just stood there and held Quadrado off. And Quadrado's got to know positionally to be there. And this is the thing: is this is not his first match filling in there. He did it all last season. But we're seeing just these defensive lapses and times where he's just got to have the wherewithal to take the foul when you have to take the foul, right? But again, it's just he's a victim of the circumstances because we just can't. It's going to happen when you have a right winger trying to play the right back position. And it's tough, but people have to understand that those criticisms, that's where it comes from. Because if we had a right back playing and he did the same thing in this particular scenario, he'd be facing the exact same criticism.
People need to understand, like, it's objective to say he was good going forward today, but it's also objective to say that, hey, when the ball comes in on the back post and he, doesn't mark the man behind him or gets wrong side of him or doesn't foul when he probably should, it's objective to say that he is not a right back, and he, it clearly shows on the defensive end.
Yeah.
But this idea that he's like undervalued or the most important player that's insane. So
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I I see it the opposite. I think he is appreciated, but at the same time, I mean, I just don't like he's not going to be free from criticism, but I think it's appreciated. Like everything that I usually read, and even what we've been saying is he's a utility guy. He's just not your plan A, in my personal opinion.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
It's not like anybody's saying we have to sell this guy, but man, it's just I don't know. He's been good offensively as of late, really good offensively, creating a lot, but the balance has to help. But we also have to have better from our manager, in my opinion.
yeah.
Uh, the subs need to not be so long. This is another game where we wait into the mid 70th to get changes.
Mhm.
When I think Bentancur could have used one a lot sooner.
He doesn't.
But not only that, but this content feeling with sitting back for so long. We
Yeah.
just I don't think we can continue in this manner. But man, I want to talk to you, and we'll kick it off here with Pirlo and his subs in this one. Like I don't know. We could talk about Pirlo in general so far and what we've seen, and what are your thoughts on it? Like,
Well,
how did you see this match? Do you think how would you score Pirlo on this one? Like
it,
give us your
on
thoughts.
on the match itself, and this might be even a little generous. I give him probably like a 6, maybe 5.5. I mean, what I'd say is tactically, I think he got the lineup spot on. Even with for Volta in there for Chiesa, I thought that was a very good lineup. The double pivot looked really good today, whereas before it really looked awful. Um, the issue is, I don't think Pirlo reads the game well yet, and I think that's part of the substitute thing. Is he doesn't know how to make mid-game adjustments correctly, and even like Sarri made kind of the same adjustments every game. They were predictable, but he even could read the game a little bit. Like Allegri in the old days, in the 60th minute, he could throw on 2 players and switch the formation. Pirlo doesn't understand that like reading of the game just yet, and I think that's a huge problem with it. So that's probably why I would go 6 out of 10, because I thought that the lineup was solid, and even the first half when they dipped off a little bit, they were very very good on the counter. So I can understand to a degree why they would dip off, maybe just a bit, but it's still frustrating to watch. And I think that in the second half, you gotta see, early on, hey, Lazio came out with a lot of energy. They were kind of flooding the flanks a little bit. We have some issues that we need to correct. And one of those is, and we called it, Murata looked a little exhausted. He's played every game since he's arrived. So like that could have been a sub very early. Bentancur could have been a sub. We talked about, the McKinney for Kulusevski swap, maybe not what was needed. It should have probably been McKinney for Bentancur. So those are the things. It's like it reminds me of Hellas Verona, where he waited so long to make those changes. And people get on Dybala, but like when you put a player like Dybala in, who's a very much like a feel, he likes to get his rhythm. You put him in the 78th minute. Um, Even Weston McKennie, like you're not giving these guys a lot of time to kind of adjust and switch the game. It's like you're putting them on like a FIFA game, in the 78th minute, and hoping they'll come out and score a goal.
Yeah.
It's
And
just
this and I mean right now he is the flavor of the week, as we say, because Dybala is that's it. That's the blame game guy right now.
mm-hmm.
Um, in this one, right away, instantly on Twitter, people just ripping him. And you know what? I'll be the first to say that touch was absolutely shocking.
Awful.
It was unacceptable, unacceptable.
Yeah.
However, again, it's not Dybala's fault that this team shut down in the entire second half.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Dybala's fault that the only times we were a threat were a few odd rushes here and there that were sparked by a midfielder.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Dybala's fault that we are happy to not press so aggressively to win the ball back. Like these are not Dybala issues. So to blame him for this draw like immediately. And again, we broke down that tying goal very well. Like there are so many sequences in there where that could have just been shut down.
And I think that there is a larger issue here that will sound like Pirlo's defense, but it's also a criticism as well, is team mentality. And I mean, even if you look back to the last 2 years, and again, I hate to harp on them because, the present, but you would see games where we would go up 1-0. Games against Lazio last year where Ronaldo is waving people forward and they're just stuck deep and behind. And I think that Pirlo's big problem is I think that he needs to set that mentality. Like he needs to be like, this is how we're going to play. This is the way we want to play. This is what we need. We need grit. We need we're going to press or we're going to stay and counter. But it needs to be a set kind of thing. And then have, that kind of hold on your team to be like, hey, we're going to bring these players on and switch the formation this way. Or we're going to play a different way, in the 60th minute. And in his defense, that comes back to very poor leadership on the field because it feels like when Ronaldo and Chiellini aren't on the pitch, there isn't a real leader. I mean, Bonucci is not – he's not Chiellini, he's not Buffon, he's not Ronaldo as a leader. And Dybala is more of like a locker room presence than he is like an on-the-pitch leader. So I think that is very frustrating.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately too, we spoke about it too after the match. This is a match to me where, it hits you that we're playing like a young team. This is something that happens to a younger side. And it's frustrating because when you have guys that aren't young, that are involved in a game-tying goal in the 94th minute, it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
So to see that happen, yeah, it's a piss-off, man. Like, Dybala's got to be way all you got to do is control the goddamn thing. Hold it up, pump the pitch if you want, whatever. You just can't have it go immediately out for a throw-in. After that, Cuadrado's got to be way better. He's got more than enough experience to get in there and take the foul. But even Bentancur.
Yeah, I mean,
Bentancur's at a young age, but he played a lot of minutes last season, and he plays a lot for his national side. You gotta be better. But again, he was so noticeably gassed that you have to question why Pirlo did not sub him rather than Kulusevski, who looked to still have juice in his legs. Because we talked about it, the only couple times we were a threat, it was out of him and running it out of there and starting these counters, right? So you really, really got to ask questions there. And the other thing is, man, I don't know if the setup itself is getting the best out of our guys and what we need to do. And the whole giving up possession, like, you have to start asking the question why we give up so much possession too, and why we're so happy to sit back and do all this. And sometimes you notice in the double pivot that it's like we get stretched out and teams are still finding space relatively easily, and it's strange to me with that setup, because typically in that setup, it's harder to find that. You know what I mean? Especially like that gap between defense and mids when you've got three CBs, but it's a little all over the map. Like, guys are finding space far too easily. Demiral's been a guy that, and I mean, we'll talk about this. We'll get right into it because, Chiellini's injury, he's going to be out for a while. And, man, it's really sad because it's Chiellini.
Yeah, he's a legend.
Everything he's done, absolute legend. His body simply cannot keep up.
Yeah.
It's done. The guy plays a game and he's out for a month. It's not going to work. It's sad, but the time has come.
Yeah.
The position Juve's in is, Pirlo's really going to have to think about this. And by the looks of it, he's pretty set on this setup and using these three guys. Now, the issue is, I know we're going to go into the international break, and we should be seeing De Ligt and Sandro come back, which is going to be huge. But you still got a bit of an issue because Bonucci is suspect. He was pretty good today, but he's suspect, and you don't get that leadership. And I started thinking about this. Who gets the captain's armband right now? Say they shut Chiellini down, not for the season, but they just Pirlo's like, you lose that faith in Chiellini playing, that he sees himself theoretically be a guy that can offer rest here and there, right? And not relied upon. For me, you've got Dybala, but De Ligt, for me, would be a guy that could do that.
Well, I think this might be widely unpopular because it's going to make fanboys, freak out. But I think if you don't give it to Bonucci, you should just give it to Ronaldo. I mean, his mentality is, I think, far and ahead of everyone else, and you see it in like the midweek game when they're driving forward. Like Chiesa missed that chance. There's an empty netter and it got blocked. And he kind of like looked up like he was frustrated. Ronaldo like runs over and goes, "No, keep going." De Ligt's a good option. And, he has that.
Well, I'm just talking about guys that can do it. Ronaldo for sure is in there. Ronaldo does it naturally though.
Yeah.
Like he's the kind of guy, he does it. He doesn't even need the band.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking about this, and like when we look at our defenders and whatnot, like it's shocking to me that like if Bonucci's suffering on the leadership part and his defense is on a downward spiral, what are we really doing back there, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is,
if you've got De Ligt coming back and you can see him as a captain, maybe not even now immediately with the Chiellini things, but what I'm saying is if you got him come back, you could see him as that. I'd slap him in the middle. And honestly, I'd question going to a back two, like just two CBs, make it a back four and go to a 4-3-3. I think you have to really start looking at it because Bonucci cannot be really relied on a whole bunch.
No, and the other thing is too, Bonucci, I saw something the other day. Bonucci's played more minutes than any other player in Europe in the last year and a half.
Absolutely. Last year he played almost the entire season.
So I think just in general, like bringing De Ligt back and just like sitting him down for a couple games would be very, very good because he might be able to hit the restart button and let him kind of just like process himself. Because even in midweek, he looked like, today he looked very good until the goal. He had a very good game. But in midweek or even at Spezia, he looked like he was walking around on one leg. He was moving as well as Chiellini normally moves.
Well, and again, this is another reason why I say you got to look at a back four is because what are we going to do? Chiellini's body can't be relied on. That leaves you with De Ligt coming back, Demiral, Bonucci, and Bonucci, Danilo, Demiral, and De Ligt. So you're going to go through only having one sub, one guy offered to give rest, and Chiellini when he does get back into it. But I don't know, man. I think it's stretched out. And honestly, going back to what we were talking about in the game, I think there's a discussion there. If you were to ask the question, does this particular formation suit us for the guys we have? Is it the best option for the players we have? And I can't say yes confidently.
Yeah, I neither can I. I think that the back four should be looked at, especially if you're going to get Alex Sandro, and you could still kind of play the way that Pirlo wants to play if you have Alex Sandro back there because he's not an attacking left back. You can almost keep him defensively a little bit more and let Danilo roam a little bit more free. But I do think that that's something that needs to be evaluated. I think that there's flaws with the double pivot. it was good today if you want to counterattack, you want to hit on the counter, but there are certain matches where we get overrun in the middle of the park, and that could be even just the transitions, because that's a big thing when you look at the system. And you mentioned it, when they have Kulizeski and they make him pull back out to the wide on the right to make a 4-4-2, wouldn't it just be naturally easier to take the guy in the hole if it was like, Weston McKennie or Kulizeski and just move him into the middle and maybe send one of the double pivots out wide, or at least let your wing back, know, hey, when you lose possession, get the fuck back, I think there's something that needs to be, because the 4-4-2 itself is not awful. It's just that the way that the transition is, everyone's like zigzagging, and it looks like this disorganized, all hell breaks loose kind of, defend the counterattack.
Yeah. It's strange. It's strange, that transition and whatnot. And I just, like I said, I think the question could be asked if that setup is best for what we have. I mean, you look at certain matches with Chiesa, and I totally understand why Pirlo's trying to do it. He's trying to maximize the output and how many offensive type players he can have out there at the same time, while not sacrificing things defensively. So naturally, this setup kind of makes the most sense, because you look at how many options you can have out there when you can have, Chiesa, Kulusevski, Morata, Ronaldo, Cuadrado on the other side, all at the same time, right? It's pretty appealing. However, at the same time, when we can't press too hard because we lose the structure, and when you start seeing matches where Chiesa, we can't even get him utilized in the opportunity getting the opportunities he should be getting, which is going 1v1 versus defenders, you start to raise a question like, what's the point then?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have the experience that a fullback will give you in those certain circumstances when you're tight on the byline and you need to just absorb a foul. Right? He doesn't understand it just yet. Defensively, every now and then, when guys kind of show him up or whatnot, and it happens on the other side with Cuadrado too from time to time. But Cuadrado's better at a lot of the situational stuff than Chiesa is, or even Kulusevski when he's over there. But that's normal because they haven't had that experience and they haven't played out there so much. So,
something else I would be curious to see, and we'll get in this, and we talk about the lineup, is if Alexandro comes back, I think you can get away with Chiesa a little bit, because, again, right now you have two attacking full wingbacks, and you leave all this space, and in Hellas you would see it, the double pivot would just get exposed badly. So if you want to do that, you have to almost make it a three-man midfield to keep the balance. Right, and just sacrifice a midfielder going forward, and just kind of do like what Liverpool do with their outside backs, where they send them forward and the midfield just stays back. So, but I think and this is crazy to say because almost a year ago I would have sold him, but maybe a less attacking outside back like Alexandro gives you that balance. But they do think it's very fair to look at this formation and be like, this doesn't suit us at the moment, based on the personnel.
Yeah. And I mean, and the thing is too, is, you've heard a lot of it say that maybe Sandro comes in and becomes one of these center backs, right? And then that pulls Danilo out, or there's a ton of things, but I don't know. I think maybe it's just too much, right? And it's just overthinking and maybe overcoaching, and maybe you just line them up in that 4-3-3 and put them in their natural position and say, you know what, fly at it. See what we can do. I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me, like I've mentioned many times, is just what I find so strange is that we have three center backs. We have 4, sometimes 5 across the middle, and we are still sacrificing so much space. I don't quite understand it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's because of what the safety net this formation is supposed to provide is mentally creating like a safety net for players and they just check out, or there's almost too many players in the same area and it's creating these question marks. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
sometimes
100%.
less people in the area and you just pick up your responsibility or you communicate it better with opponents,
Well,
with your teammates. But I think when there's so many there that you just like banking, oh, well, that guy's there or this guy's there
yeah.
because there's so much. But I don't know. It just, it's, there's something going on where it's just not really smooth,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But let's get on to Ramsey now. Because Ramsey, is out for, I think last I heard was 30, maybe 40 days.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just, I mean, nobody's surprised by any means. But, you know, we talked about it the earlier portion, right kicking off this podcast in the lineup. I think it's Kulishevsky time in that spot. Yeah. I think he showed today what he could do. Not as much, but I don't think that was because of him, the lack of involvement. I think the game itself just kind of dictated that. But, man, to me, he looked like a different player, personally.
Well, he was really good defensively, which I think should be noted. He won the ball more than a few times.
Yeah. He had a couple touches that got away from him. One in a really good opportunity up in the attacking in the final third there, just in the area. But other than that, I like him. It's clear as day. This kid, he's got vision, he's got drive, he's got good technical ability. He just can't do it without a little bit of space. Yeah. He just needs to be a little bit of space, and he needs to be going downhill. He needs to be looking up the pitch. As soon as you try to get him in too tight technical areas with guys around him, it gets a little bit tricky. But if he's looking forward, it's pretty good, man. I really, really liked that, and I've been saying it for a while. We don't have a midfielder that drives the ball like that.
Yeah.
He can do that. We just don't have any of those guys that can do it. Rabiot does it from time to time, but Rabiot really suffers in the final third, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, because he's not a goal scorer.
Yeah. It's just the decisions, you could see him start to almost overthink and everything slows down right in the critical time. Kulishevsky doesn't have that. He'll make a decision.
Yeah.
He'll make it fast, and whether it works out or it doesn't, regardless, he's making a decision, he's making it quick, and he's being, he's doing it with conviction. Mm-hmm. Rabiot, that's my only knock on him, is he will make drives like he did in the 57th of this one. Ended up getting a good low hard shot off it that forced a save by Reina. But 9 times out of the 10, you're really looking for a bit more out of Rabiot. But it's coming there. It's definitely better than it has been for the last little while with him in the final third. Rabiot, I see a bit of improvement there, but I don't think by any means it's at the level of Kulishevsky.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, beyond just Kulishevsky, who deserves to play that position now because he's performing the best. But we had mentioned like Weston McKennie has played there very well. I personally would like to see Arthur try it one time because I think he could unlock like against a smaller team, like some of that final third. But I think that is just the general thing is Aaron Ramsey's kind of like Douglas Costa. I mean, you use him for 3 games, he gets hurt, and then that's it. It's unfortunate because he was having a good start to the year, but
yeah. And I want to talk now as we're kind of past Kulishevsky, but we've got we talked about this being a product of just us being a younger squad, and it seems like now, we got the blame game going on. We talked about the flavor of the week, and it's Paulo Dybala. And I want to get your take on Dybala. I just, it's moments like these where it's just it's outrageous, but it seems like we go through that every year with guys. but he seems to be the particular one now, and I think the contract stuff has heightened it. I think
Yeah.
the reports of him being unhappy when he didn't get time in a certain match, and then obviously stuff like this happens, and he just shits the bed in a critical time with his touch, but then more happens. I want to get your take on Dybala. I'm not going to dive into a whole lot of this one because I
Yeah.
have
I mean,
a lot, but I want to just get your take, Lewis, because you and I haven't really discussed it.
yeah, I mean, I think that it's a little complex. I think that Dybala, first off, I mean, we do need to acknowledge that he literally missed whatever mini preseason we had. He's kind
Yep.
of like thrown in there. After a couple of injuries he had, he was ill right before the start of the year. So I think that plays a little bit of a part into it. To me, he looks just kind of sluggish. And then I also think though, and this is a larger issue, we've seen this movie before, where when Dybala kind of has a bunch of competition, where it's not clear that it's going to go through him, kind of, he struggles a lot. And 2 years ago, when he was really poor, when Mandzukic was scoring goals and Bernardeschi was having decent performances, there was a time that happened. He really struggled to find his way in there. And I think that plays a little bit of a part into it. Beyond just the on the field stuff, the contract issue, him and Juventus haven't seen eye to eye for 2 years now. The club tried to sell him. They undervalue him a little bit. What he's asking for is a bit absurd. So I think that there's too much noise and too many variations around him right now. It almost needs to be like simplified. Like, hey, we got your back. We're waiting for you to show up. But like in the meantime, dropping you in certain matches isn't just because you're not good enough. It's because it's because you're not fit, or hey, it's just because Morata's playing well right now. It kind of needs someone to shoot straight with him a little bit and kind of give him a little bit of tough love as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man, that you touched on. And, I'm thinking about it, though. And, when we say struggling, when it's not really clear that he's for competition. But I don't know, if we look back, you only see the one season where he really was poor, by his terms. But before that, he was always solid. And there was good players around as well.
But I think in those other two seasons, and sorry to interrupt, but I think in those other two seasons, there was never really. Well, the first season he was just a new young player, but that second season, the year we went to Cardiff, he was a pretty big focal point. Like, what I'm saying is now, like you have he can't play with a number 9 in Ronaldo. Like it's almost got to be either him and Ronaldo or Ronaldo and the number 9. It feels because he's kind of a striker and is like he likes to be close to goal. So I think that what happens is when a player like Morata is scoring a lot of goals, he gets like really frustrated because it cuts into his sort of playtime.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's tough. Like, it's really interesting the way you said, though, because you think about it last year, and maybe that was it. Maybe it was because Sarri came in and said, like, Dybala, Ronaldo, like, these are our key guys.
Mm-hmm.
And, Dybala was like one of the very few that actually made any post or anything for Sarri when he was let go. And it's interesting that you say that, man, because one of the things that he's always been questioned about was his mentality, and how weak he is mentally. And then last year, and I'm one of them, I thought, hey, like, way to show your mental strength because you were forced out by the club aggressively, said no, took a stand, and then had an unbelievable year. But I thought maybe it was that mentality, playing with a chip on his shoulder, and I thought he was taking that next step. And he was solid all year. And he's been solid ever since we got him. He's only had one poor season.
Yeah.
But maybe it was because Sarri just said, hey, like, you're one of my guys, right? and had that faith in him and showed that. And maybe it is. Maybe it's the competition now. Maybe it is that Morata's come in and has been scoring like crazy. And if that's the case, he's got to be way better mentally. Like he's just, and if that's the case, I'd hate for that to be the case, but maybe it's more contract related. And I've had this discussion with many, and I think maybe he just knows, maybe sees the writings on the wall.
Yeah.
I think we all do. There's no way an extension takes that long.
Yeah.
But people lashing out at him, though, even using the money and saying, "Oh, that's ridiculous." Well, every job I've had and what I do professionally, day in day out, is like negotiations are a huge part of it.
Yeah.
You never go in asking for what you're going to accept.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of negotiations. Of course, you aim high because you know you got to give yourself that cushion. You got to give yourself a room. And I don't even take a lot of that into consideration because, again, if he wanted to go, he could have been gone, and he could have got his payday. He could have done all that, but he chose to stay. So there's a lot to it.
Juventus told him when they gave him the number 10, "Hey, we're building the future around you." Right. The next year they got Ronaldo. Fine, there's a little bit of a setback, but then the following year he was Serie A Player of the Year. It's not like crazy unreasonable for him to ask for a lot of money. He was Player of the Year last year. You know?
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable by any means, but I think this whole thing is just, this is what we're getting. And whether right or wrong, and does it make him mentally weak for it? Yeah, I guess you could say that, right? I mean, if it's because of his contract things and whatnot, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, if it was because, of how bad he wanted to stay, like, you kind of got to feel for the guy. Does he deserve to stay? Like just a simple question like that, given what he's done for the club and whatnot, like, how would you answer that, Lewis? Like, does he deserve to stay and be a part of Juve?
He does. I mean, I think that he can be a concrete player in this team. I think that he's a very good player too, and he represents Juventus really, really well. Some of the new signings last year, people like Demiral talk about like Dybala was kind of like that person that like helped him into the locker room and things like that. A lot of players say that. So I think that as a representative of Juventus, he definitely deserves to be a part of the club. I just think that if the club is looking at Dybala objectively and saying, "Hey, we don't know where this guy's best fit is. When we have a fit for it, he's one of our best players, but when we don't, he seems to not be playing very well." If you're going to get like a giant offer from the Premier League, you do have to look at it, especially with the financial restrictions. And I say to someone, Dybala is my favorite player on Juventus right now. It pains me to see him play like this, but
that's the thing is, it's tough, man. But right now, he's got to. He's like, Morata's red hot. He's not going anywhere. Like, this guy's a lock. CR is CR. Dybala's got to do it. With the training sessions and with the minutes that he is going to get, because, man, if he keeps doing this, he ain't going to get starts. And there's like, you can't defend playing like this. And like the touch there, like, I know, like, I'm not blaming him for the goal against it, like many are, but at the same time, like, it's just, for a guy of that stature, it can't happen. It just simply can't. It's embarrassing. And the sulking and the head up and stuff, and even he had a play deep in Lazio end, and they were working it around, he and I believe Quadrado, and then he's just got to hold the ball, and he sees Milinkovic-Savic come in, and he tries to eat a foul, tries to make a meal out of it to get the foul, when all he had to do was hold the ball, keep his back to Milinkovic-Savic and hold on to it. If he fouls you, but don't try to just create a foul. Like, just hold on to the ball is the main thing. And when he does things like that, and it happens, it becomes very, very hard to defend, and it sucks. And you're right, he is one of my favorites on the club currently, but it's just got to be so much better. And I've been saying to people, like, I still think it's premature to just like jump on him and attack him and all of this because he was off for a few months. And I still have faith he's going to kick back and get it going. But at the same time, for this kid that wants to, and not even a kid anymore, he's 26, he's going on 27.
Yeah.
But for this guy, just that wants to be the 10, that wants to be the future and fought to stay here and stuff, it's got to be a lot better. And whatever it is that's his issue, he's got to figure out fast. But what if, and just what if, he knows that it doesn't even matter?
Yeah, and that could be it.
Yeah. And that just simply maybe it. What if he knows that it really doesn't even matter? That would probably affect me, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, think about being a player where the club doesn't see the value that you see yourself in that club. I mean, I think anyone naturally would be kind of thrown off by it. And maybe he just, his agent was in town for a month. They didn't get a deal done. Maybe his agent was just like to him, hey, this is the end. Like, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah. Now, and this is the thing too, is you've had a lot of fans just saying, hey, if he wants to stay so bad, tell him to take a pay cut, whatnot. And I said, well, the problem with that is you've offered up such ridiculous money to not nobodies, but guys that didn't deserve it.
I mean,
so Juve kind of shot themselves in the foot on that end of it too, but it's tough, man. This is a tough situation, but right now it's killing me because we all know Dybala's miles ahead of where he's at right now.
Yeah.
He's so much better than that. On his day, he's ridiculous. It's just he's not even close right now. And whatever it is, he's got figured out. But the fear is there that it wouldn't even matter anyways, and it's sad, but life moves on. We go on, and Juventus will move on as well, should it happen. I hope not, but many do hope that he leaves and we sell him, and we'll see what comes of it. Best 11 as of now is what we're going to get into, Lewis, before we wrap up. This will be the last one. Break now. We'll get Delict, Sandro back. Our next match is until, I believe, the 21st versus Cagliari. And this is not really easy, but here, I want to have some fun with this. So I'm going to ask you our best 11 as of now in Pirlo's setup. But then I want to ask you your best 11 and if you would change the setup.
Okay. So in Pirlo's system, are we assuming that Delict, Sandro, or?
Yeah, let's say, and this is a tough one because you wanted to discuss this. So really it's up to you. Did you want to discuss it as everybody being healthy, or do you want to talk about the players fit currently?
I was getting just like the players fit currently.
Let's do the players fit currently. So let's not jump ahead. Let's just say right now a crucial match is tomorrow. Yeah. Let's do your best 11 right now in Pirlo's setup and then in yours.
Okay, I would keep the back three in Pirlo's system. In Pirlo's system, we have the back three. I would keep it the same. It's Demiral, Bonucci, Danilo at the back. I don't really know what else you would do considering Chiellini, isn't healthy. Then in the midfield, I really like the Bentancur-Rabiot pairing. I thought that was really good in the double pivot. They seem to create a little bit of balance for each other. So I would, stay there. See, the wingbacks is where it gets hard for me. The two up front, Morata and Ronaldo, stay the same. I don't think there's much of a debate with that. And I guess kind of, I would still do Cuadrado and Chiesa because Alexandro's not there. Probably Yeah, I would still do that just because we don't have another option. And we may differentiate on this. I think I'd still put Weston McKennie in the hole. Um, I know Kulusevski looked really really good today, and he's shown some bright spots. I just think that McKennie creates a lot of space there going forward. For whatever reason, his runs off the ball allow for a lot more space for Morata and Ronaldo to move. I thought at times State looked a little congested, and he does really good at kind of switching that field of play in and around the final third. That I think Kulusevski eventually will do. I just think for right now, that's the better lineup. And he gives you a little bit more. You know, when Pirlo wants him to pop out in that 4-4-2 or whatever they do when they defend,
Yeah.
um, he's a little bit quicker. He's got a little bit more energy. So,
Yeah. Well, it's a tough one for me. And the reason it's tough is because of Chiellini's recent status. Like, part of me wants to stay with the back three because he's not involved, and I think it helps the guys out. However, Demiral's he looks a little off in this three-man back.
yeah.
So I'm like, part of me is questioning if Bonucci and Demiral would be okay as a back two, but Bonucci's been suffering defensively for so long now that I'm weary about it. And having Danilo, who's been steady there on the side of him, that's a really, really tough call because at the back, like I think with three backs, it works, but I also think like going to a 4-3-3 would help us when it came to midfield and forwards. Especially getting like a guy like Chiesa on, say, the right side of Morata with Ronaldo on the left.
Yeah.
Like, I think we could get a hell of a lot of damage out of that, right? And then in the middle, hell, if you could do it a couple different ways, you know? You can have Benta as a holder in front of the D with Arthur and Rabiot on the side, but it really, really looks like Pirlo wants Arthur as that main holder. And then, but I'm still fine with that. And then you've got a guy like McKennie and even Rabiot that can play on the side.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you have Kulusevski. How does Kulusevski fit in? Could he play the midfield as one of those side central midfielders? I don't really know. Could he play up on the wing? He could, but I think he's better with just coming from a little bit deeper, right? So it's really, really hard. I'm kind of torn if I had to pick my best 11, but I think I probably. Oh man, the Bonucci thing kills me. I don't know if I have faith putting him in just a back two with Demiral. And Demiral, is he shaky because he's still young and not polished, or is he shaky because of the back three? Like, some question marks there. So I'd probably, gun to my head, I'd probably stick with Pirlo's system. Yeah. And I'd go Demiral, Bonucci, Danilo, Quadrado on the right. I would go with Frabotta on the left. Chiesa, that's a tough call there, but I don't know. And this is part of the thing too, is Chiesa. Like, I think he's almost a little wasted out at that left wing back.
Well, because they never find him when they're countering either.
Yeah. You know, so it sucks. But yeah, Frabotta or Chiesa, I guess, on the left. Let's throw Chiesa in there because of his offensive threat. And then maybe in the middle, man, I like Kulusevski in the hole, so I'd probably go McKennie, Rabiot, and Kulusevski, basing it on everything I've seen from everybody so far, with Morata and Ronaldo up top.
That's fair. I think if we were to play fantasy football for a moment and I was the manager, I would love to see this team in the 4-2-3-1. I know, like, I've been critical of the double pivot. I think there's a lot of variations of the 4-2-3-1 that you could run and you could kind of get away with it because Chiesa, as he is an attacking player, he's more of like a classic like right-sided midfielder. Like he's not going to give you like 10 to 15 goals a year. He's good for like 5 to 8 and a couple assists. But in this theory, if you could get that hypothetical front four where you have Ronaldo on the left, Kulusevski in behind, and this is just based on play, by the way, Chiesa on the right and Morata up top, that could be really, really deadly. I mean, imagine when Juventus counterattacks with that four. Kulusevski bringing the ball through the lines and Chiesa running down the flanks and Ronaldo swinging in on the left. In theory, it could be very deadly. The issue would be with the double pivot, I'd probably still go Bentancur, Rabiot, maybe Bentancur or Rabiot, McKinney, just to kind of cover that Ronaldo spot. One of those guys would have to cover that left side. And then if he fully fit, the back four would be Sandro, De Ligt, Danilo. Yeah, and then again, the Bonucci thing is weird. I think I would.
It's tough.
I
It's definitely not easy.
I think I would still lean towards Bonucci because
the 4-3-1 is.
I'd still lean with Bonucci because I think that Demiral just like he just isn't ready yet. I think that there's something in his game that's off. Sometimes it's like in Spezia it was the ball at his feet was kind of off. Positionally he looks a little positionally he looks weird. And he doesn't know how to like settle himself very well. Like Chiellini, Bonucci, when they were at their peaks, what Barzali includes, like they knew when to use their burst of energy, when to foul, when to dive in for a challenge, when to to step up, to call the offside. So I just think Demiral lacks that little bit of defensive IQ that maybe comes from like a lot of minutes or just like fine tuning to be that good center back. And maybe with De Ligt as his partner to kind of cover him out. But I don't know. That's the big conundrum is at center back.
Well, the thing with the 4-2-3-1 is that it should theoretically help. I don't know. The one thing that strikes me is like the balance issue. I feel like we'd suffer defensively.
Yeah.
But it should provide a much more cleaner transition into the 4-4-2 shell for Pirlo than this current setup he has. Because you'd have to imagine 4-2-3-1. Ronaldo would occupy the left. Morata would be up top. Those would be your two guys that you used as your front men in a 4-4-2 base. So essentially you're asking the center attacking mid and your right winger to drop back defensively. Like theoretically how 4-2-3-1 would work is you would have your outsides drop straight back.
Yeah.
To make your shell, right? And you'd leave your center attacking mid and your striker up top. And now those would be your two up at the top of your 4-4-2 shell. So the fact that Ronaldo's locked in at left and he does best off the left, it kind of changes it to another awkward transition, right?
Yeah.
So it's tricky, man. It's not easy. But I mean, I said it a couple matches ago. I'm ready to see it. I'm ready to see a 4-3-3. I'm ready to see a 4-2-3-1. I just think with the players we have, it would be better. It's just again, you're at the same spot we're at now, which is trying to gain that defensive stability in order to support the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of in flux there, man. This was a really, really tough one, man. It's a kick in the junk. It's points we lost, and we had them. Realistically, in general, man, we knew this race this year was going to be tight, but I don't know. Like, obviously, it depends on some of these other matches that are going to be taking place and going on, but Juve, this is going to be really, really difficult to get the 10th, man.
Yeah.
and there's a lot of Juventini already that have ruled it out. I'm not ruling it out, but we definitely have to pick it up. This is the month for us to gain points and get a lot of them and get up that ladder. And I was honestly hoping that at the end of this month we could finish top, given some good results going against some of the other opposition and whatnot. But this month was set up pretty good for us schedule wise, as far as all our opponents. This was going to be one of the tough ones. But a draw, it's not the end of the world, but it feels like the end of the world when you have it and you piss it away at the very, very end.
Well, and the pressure that you could put on a young Milan team is to get that 3 points, move within a point of the table right before their game, and be like, hey, here comes the guys that won it 9 times in a row. I think that for me, I'll probably be more concerned as we get closer to the winter break. But if you can get it close by the winter break, even if you're off a point or two, I think that at some point there is just sort of not a fear factor, but it's almost like expected for Juventus to win it. It's kind of like a Bayern Munich, right? And I think that depending on who's that first place team, you could still overturn it.
And that's just it. I mean, we're 7 games in. We're at 13 points, 3 wins, 4 draws. So we haven't suffered defeat, but you're not going to get it with all draws.
Yeah.
We're 3 points behind Milan, who faces, I believe, Verona later today. Yeah, they'll play Hellas Verona. So they could potentially be 6 points clear of us, 7 games through. Ahead of us, they're at 15. So I continue. We could get worked up and it would raise alarm. But as of right now, 6 points is not the end of the world. It's also not ideal, but I'd say let's see where we're at end of when you're right around winter break there and see where we're at. But no question, matches like this, and this is one of the things we've talked about with Juve in general over this past little period of time, these past couple of years, that feeling that we're always going to pull through is fading more and more and more, right? And now this is our second year of essentially being a team under construction, trying to find its identity. All of us trying to figure out who we are as a club, as a team, right? And this just to me, again, like we talked about earlier, is just, it showed a young team to me. To let it slide away like that, it was just an experience thing, not only from the players, I think from the manager as well. And it's growing pains, man. I see this match as growing pains, and it's going to happen when you want to make such a big shift, right? And we had such a big core group of guys, right, that are now, you can't rely on Chiellini. Bonucci's on a downward spiral. Mandzukic took off. Higuain's no longer there. It's like, it's just a big, big change. Pjanic is no longer there. Like, there's a big, big change. Big influx of players. To be 6 points out, 7 games through, if Milan beats Verona here, not the end of the world by any means. We just need the progression. We just need the team to grow, and we just need to see it going in the right direction. And honestly, these are the matches like this one today that you want to see where you stand on the measuring stick, right?
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I thought it was pretty good, to be honest. It just slid away at the end, and the second half, we just let off a bit too much. But the one thing, and I know Juventini hate hearing this, and as frustrating as it is, but hopefully we will learn from it.
Yeah.
That's all you can hope for, man.
Yeah. The only good news is that, the performance definitely went up. The end sucked, but,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of brightness in this season that A, the performance went up, and B, some of the players look individually better. And we see some improvements from certain players.
Yeah. Again, I think we've seen what guys can do. Now it's a matter of getting them in the proper areas and positions to really do the damage. We know what Chiesa can bring. It's time to see how we can maximize getting the best out of him. Morata's on an absolute tear. Great. Kulishevsky might have a spot for him now, and might be getting a lot of minutes to really shine through, hopefully, right? It's just putting it all together. McKennie he's got an incredible work rate, great defensively, but he's also decent on the ball and gives us touch. Like, he's got that +1 on what we all wanted out of Matuidi. You know what I mean? So it's not so doom and gloom, right? Like, we're seeing some good stuff. It's just a matter of putting it all together, and that is going to fall on Pirlo's shoulders. So hopefully he gets it right. Hopefully we can start growing. But this particular match, I've seen some of the takes, and they're pretty aggressive, and I don't think it was at that point. Not for me, anyways. The result felt like that, but it wasn't that bad, and we deserved the victory, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And if Ronaldo's shot doesn't smack that post, we have a different discussion, right? So we talk about what a big win that was on the road to Lazio for a team that's growing that needed it. So it was literally that close, So let's take it in stride. We've got an international break, and I know these things fucking suck, but this one's a good one because, again, strong chance immediately after it. De Ligt, Sandro are back, and we can use the bodies, and we can use some rest for some of these other guys, and that'll be big for us. Big. So, till then, and until the match back against Cagliari, we'll talk to you then. Come back at you with another post-match podcast. Lewis, it's been an absolute pleasure. You worked the doubleheader today, La Panchina, and then all Juvecast. It's much appreciated, man. Thank you so much. And as always, until next time, Forza Juve, fino alla fine. Ciao.